The Galactic Concordat's long-range sensors picked up the anomaly first, a vessel drifting at the edge of the Helix Nebula. No transponder codes, no energy signatures beyond primitive fission reactors, just a hulking mass of steel and radiation. Commander Vale of the Harmony's Light leaned back in his command chair, mandibles twitching in amusement. A lost ship? From where? Unknown origin, Tactical Officer Crow reported. No match in the database. Hull composition suggests pre-FTL construction. Vale chuckled. Primitives, then. Probably some upstart species that got lucky with a warp drive. He flicked a dismissive claw. Hail them. Krell sent the standard first contact protocols. Greetings, we come in peace. Identify yourselves, but the ship remained silent. No response. No life signs. Automated. Krell mused. Or dead, Vale said. Either way, salvage rights apply. He signaled the boarding team. Take a look. If they're extinct, we might as well claim the wreck. The boarding shuttle docked with the alien vessel, its magnetic clamps locking onto the pockmarked hull. The team, armed but not expecting resistance, stepped into the darkness. No lights, no heat, just the hum of dormant machinery. Nothing alive here, Sergeant Drax reported, scanning the empty corridors. But the reactors are still hot. Someone was here recently. Then they found the bridge. No crew, just a single terminal, blinking with a single line of text in a crude but decipherable script. You shouldn't have touched our ship. Drax barely had time to process the words before the radiation alarm screamed. The reactors went critical. The blast tore through the Harmony's Light, shredding its starboard flank. Vale was thrown from his chair, the deck plating buckling beneath him. Emergency lights flared red as the ship reeled. Krell's voice was tight with panic. Commander, that wasn't ship. It was a bomb. Vale stared at the wreckage on the view screen, his blood running cold. Earth hadn't sent diplomats. They'd sent a warning. The Concordat High Command erupted into chaos. Holo displays flickered with damage reports from the Harmony's Light. The once pristine vessel now a mangled wreck. Admiral Zorth, his scales dull with stress, slammed a fist onto the war table. Explain this. His voice was a blade. Vale stood at attention, his exoskeleton still scorched from the blast. The ship was unmanned. No crew, no life signs, just a reactor rigged to detonate. Xenologist Tvek scrolled through the recovered data. The language matches nothing in our archives, but the translation matrix cracked it. Human origin. Sol system. Zortha's tail lashed. Humans. Pre-FDL. Supposedly, Tvek said, but no species as primitive has ever attacked us first. A new alert blared across the comms. Sensor Officer Drix's voice crackled with panic. Admiral, 3 more contacts. Same configuration as the first. Zortha's crest flattened. Destroy them before they get close. The Concordat fleet opened fire. Plasma lances tore through the void, striking the lead human vessel, which detonated prematurely, the explosion ripping a frigate apart. The second ship veered off course, spiraling toward a carrier. Point defense gun shredded its hull, but not before its reactor breached, shearing the carrier's flank open. The third ship didn't even try to evade. It plowed straight into a battlecruiser at full thrust. The bridge shook as Zorth watched the feed. They're not ships, he hissed. They're munitions. Tvek pulled up the last transmission from the wreckage. A looping audio file, translated. First contact protocol. If you shoot, we burn your fleet down. Silence. Then Drix whispered. They're not trying to talk. Zorth turned to Vale. You boarded their vessel. Did you see anything that could tell us why they're doing this? Vale hesitated. There was a symbol carved into bulkhead. He reconstructed it on the hollow display, a skeletal figure in a helmet, gripping a sword. Tvek inhaled sharply. That's not a distress call. That's a declaration. The alarm screamed again. Drix's voice was hollow. Admiral, long-range scans just picked up a new wave. 20 contacts. All identical. Zora stared at the incoming blips. They're not stopping. Tvek looked at the symbol again. No, they're just getting started. The Concordat's outer colonies burned. Forward base Theta 9 was the first to fall. Surveillance drones showed the attack in jagged fragments. Human drop pods screaming through the atmosphere, armored figures emerging in plumes of fire. The defenders barely had time to sound the alarm before the slaughter began. 𝙎𝙗 watched the feed in silence. The humans moved like nothing he'd ever seen. No elegant phalanxes, no honor duels, no attempts at communication. Just brutal, relentless advance. They didn't take prisoners. They didn't pause to gloat. They simply killed everything in their path and kept moving. 𝙎𝙘𝙤𝙞-𝙁𝙞 analysis was grim. Their armor negates our plasma rifles. Their kinetics shred our infantry. And their tactics. The xenologist trailed off as footage showed a human soldier, missing an arm, face a mass of blood, still firing until his last breath. They don't retreat, 𝙎𝙗 finished. A new report flashed across the tactical display. The human fleet had bypassed the blockade at Ceres 5, not through superior firepower, but by sacrificing 3 ships as rams, their reinforced bows smashing to the picket line before detonating. Vale studied the wreckage patterns. They're not just willing to die, they're planning on it. The command center's doors hissed open. Fleet Marshal Kess, her carapace still streaked with coolant from her crippled flagship, limped in. They hit the shipyards at Gamma Cluster, she rasped. Not just the docks, the civilian habitats. 𝙎𝙗's claws dug into the console. You're certain? Kess threw the footage onto the main screen. Debris spun slowly against the stars, twisted metal and frozen bodies, some still clutching children. A single human warship floated at the center of the destruction, its blackened hull displaying that same skeletal insignia. 𝙎𝙖 suddenly straightened. Wait! Zoom, Sector 7. The enhanced image revealed a pattern in the destruction. The habitats were collateral damage. The real target had been the quantum dry dock, the Concordat's only facility capable of building warp cannons. They're not mindless, 𝙎𝙖 whispered. This was surgical. An alarm shrieked. The outer perimeter sensors lit up with dozens of new contacts, but these weren't the crewed drone ships. These were massive, angular battleships, their armor studded with weapons. And at their center, that's a command vessel, Kess breathed. The lead ship's comms burst life. No translation delay. No attempt at diplomacy. Just a human voice, rough and uncompromising. This is Admiral Cole of the United Sol Fleet. You have 1 hour to surrender unconditionally. Static, then, or we demonstrate why our ancestors called this planet Earth. The transmission cut. The fleet began to advance. 𝙎𝙗 looked at his officers, really looked at them. He saw the cracks in Vale's bravado, the tremor in Kess's limbs, the way 𝙎𝙖's hands shook as they hovered over the console. For the first time in the Concordat's 1,000-year history, its leaders knew true fear, not a defeat, of extinction. The hour passed in suffocating silence. 𝙎𝙗's war council had disintegrated into frantic arguments. Surrender versus suicide charges, last stands versus desperate negotiations. But the humans hadn't sent another transmission. Their fleet simply waited motionless, like predators circling wounded prey. Then the sensors detected the energy spike. It originated from the human command ship, a pulse so powerful it distorted space-time readings. The Concordat science officers scrambled to interpret the data, but by then it was already too late. The weapon didn't fire. It unfolded. A lattice of blackened alloy extended from the ship's belly, panels sliding apart to reveal a yawning maw of coiled energy. The readings made no sense. Particle densities incompatible with known physics, gravitational distortions that shouldn't have been possible. 𝙎𝙖 was the first to understand. It's not a weapon, he whispered. It's a key. The activation sequence completed. Space tour. A fissure ripped open between the human fleet and the Concordat's last remaining stronghold, a wound in reality itself, swirling with unnatural light. For a single, horrifying moment, 𝙎𝙗 saw something moving within that abyss. Vast, hungry. Then the human ships pushed it toward them. The rift surged forward, consuming everything in its path. Battle cruisers crumpled like paper. Shields flared and died instantly. An entire carrier group vanished without debris, as if erased from existence. Panic transmissions flooded the comms. Screams, prayers, final curses. 𝙎𝙬 watched helplessly as the distortion reached the planet below. The atmosphere itself peeled away, continents fracturing like glass under a hammer. The human fleet didn't cheer, didn't gloat. They simply observed, cold and methodical, as an entire world ceased to be. When the rift finally collapsed, leaving only perfect, empty space where the Concordat's mightiest fortress had been, Admiral Cole's voice returned. This was Sol's mercy. Static. Next time we skipped the demonstration. The transmission ended. The human ships turned in unison, not toward the next Concordat stronghold, but away, back into the void. Vale let out a shuddering breath. They're leaving? 𝙎𝙬 stared at the sensor feeds, his voice hollow. No, they're done. The truth settled over the bridge like ash. The humans hadn't come to conquer, hadn't even come to punish. They delivered a message, written in the annihilation of an entire world. And now they were going home. 𝙎𝙬 sank into his chair, his claws scraping weakly against the armrests. Around him, officers wept or sat in catatonic silence. The Concordat still stood. Its fleet still outnumbered humanity's 1,000 to 1. It didn't matter. Some lines, once crossed, couldn't be uncrossed. Some enemies couldn't be bargained with, couldn't be reasoned with, would never stop. And the galaxy had just learned what happened when you made them angry. On the view screen, the last human ship vanished into warp. Silence followed, the kind that comes after a scream. The Concordat's remnants gathered in the ruins of High Command, their once gleaming halls now lit by emergency glow strips. Zorpses of shattered war machines lined the corridors like broken toys. 𝙎𝙬 stared at the casualty reports, scrolling across the cracked holo display. Billions dead, entire fleets erased. The humans hadn't just broken their military. They'd shattered the illusion of galactic dominance that had held the Concordat together for millennia. 𝙎𝙬 entered, his carapace dull with exhaustion. The outer colonies are declaring independence. The 𝙎𝙬 hegemony just seized 3 border systems. Vale let out a bitter laugh. And why shouldn't they? We can't protect them anymore. A transmission alert chimed, an incoming message from the Sol border. Not from the military this time. A civilian freighter, its hull scorched but intact. The image resolved to show a human woman, in a plain jumpsuit, her face lined with what might have been pity. Concordat survivors, she said, her voice carrying none of Admiral Cole's steel. We're transmitting schematics for radiation scrubbers and medical nanites. Your people in the irradiated zones have about 6 standard weeks before necrosis sets in. 𝙎𝙬's claws twitched. Is this a trick? The woman shook her head. No more demonstrations. No more lessons. Just this. She paused. Some of us argued against giving you even this much. But we're not you. The transmission ended. The schematics auto-downloaded, legitimate, workable, with no hidden traps. Kess let out a shuddering breath. Why? After what they did? 𝙎𝙬 studied the files, his voice hollow. Because mercy is more terrifying than cruelty. Now we have to live with knowing exactly what we provoked. Outside the viewports, the first refugee ships limped into dock. Survivors from the border worlds, their hulls pitted with radiation burns. The once proud Concordat banners hung in tatters. 𝙎𝙬 turned away from the sight. The war was over. The humans had won, without even bothering to claim their victory. And the galaxy would never sleep soundly again. The first human diplomats arrived unarmed. Their shuttle was a simple, unremarkable craft. No weapons, no armor plating, just a blunt-nosed transport vessel descending onto the scarred landing pads of Concordat Prime. The delegation that emerged wore no environmental suits, carried no visible sidearms. Only their eyes betrayed them, cold, measuring, utterly unafraid. 𝙎𝙬 met them at the base of the ramp, his ceremonial armor polished to hide the dents. Behind him, what remained of the High Command stood in uneasy formation. The lead human, a gray-haired man with a face like weathered stone, extended a data crystal. Terms, he said. No translator. He spoke flawless High Concordat. 𝙎𝙬 took the crystal, his mandibles twitching as he scanned the contents. This isn't a surrender demand. The human smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. "We don't want your worlds. Don't need your tribute." He nodded to the crystal. "Just one rule from now on. Zorth, access a file. A single line glowing in both languages. Soul system is off limits. No threats. No elaboration. Just that." Vale bristled. "That's all? After what you—" The human's gaze silenced him. "We could have glassed every planet you own. Turned your people into cautionary tales." He tilted his head. "You're still here because we allow it." The silence stretched. Somewhere in the distance, a damaged reactor groaned. Tvek was the first to bow. Then Kess. Then, slowly, Zord himself. The human nodded. Smart. He turned back toward his shuttle. "Oh, one more thing." He didn't look back as he spoke. "Tell the Rixians. Tell the Voric Collective. Tell everyone." His voice carried across the dead-quiet landing zone. "We're watching." The shuttle door sealed. The engines whined to life. As the humans departed, Zorth realized a true horror. They hadn't come to rule the galaxy. They just wanted to be left alone. And now, no one would ever dare disturb them again. The human shuttle had barely cleared orbit when the riots began. Zorth watched from the command spire as Concordat Prime unraveled. Mobs swarmed the Hall of Ancestors, tearing down the old banners. Former vassal species marched the thoroughfares, their chants shaking the fractured cityscape. The great galactic order was collapsing under the weight of a single undeniable truth. Someone had made the humans angry, and the Concordat had paid the price. Tvek's claws clacked against the observation glass. "The Rixians are already calling it the Great Correction." Kess snorted. "They would. They lost 3 scout fleets to human minefields last week." A new alert flashed. Security feeds from the orbital docks. A group of Concordat engineers were dismantling a warship's plasma banks, converting them to civilian power cores. One of them looked up at the camera, his face alight with something Zorth hadn't seen in decades. "Hope." Vale limped into the chamber, fresh bandages wrapping his thorax. The Vorth just opened trade routes with Sol. He tossed a data slate onto the table. No tariffs, no inspections, just commerce. Zora scrolled through the reports. Human merchant vessels, bristling with weapons but carrying agricultural tech, medical supplies, terraforming data. The terms were shockingly generous. If you followed one simple rule, don't look up. Tvek exhaled sharply. "They're not building an empire." "No," Zorth agreed. "They're building a wall." The comms chimed. A priority message from the edge of human space. A single image, the skeletal insignia, now etched into the hull of a derelict Vorth battleship. The caption read, "We warned them too." Kess laughed, a raw, broken sound. "Gods help anyone who doesn't learn from our mistakes." Outside, the first of Concordat Prime's new fusion reactors flared to life, its design unmistakably human. The city's lights brightened for the first time since the war. Zorth turned away from the viewport. The galaxy had changed, and humanity hadn't even bothered to stay and watch.